Who doesn't love a good tournament arc? Oftentimes, some of the best fights, character development, and moments in an entire anime franchise occur during the arcs that straight up just pit characters against each other in a controlled fight setting, almost giving an excuse for characters who would never fight normally to throw hands. Two series that are well known for their tournament arcs are Dragonball and Naruto, with the 3 budokai tournaments and the Chunin exams respectively being some of the most defining arcs of their respective franchises and of anime as a whole. Today we're going to look into the hypothetical scenario of if Goku's first tournament was not the 21st Budokai, but instead was the Chunin exams in early Naruto. Could he pass all 3 stages? Could he win the entire tournament? Or would he be beaten by some of the strongest young shinobi who existed at the time? Let's find out. We'll be going through each stage of the Chunin exams in chronological order, starting with the written exam, then the Forest of Death, and finally the actual tournament. We will address character scaling later and logistical issues when we come across them, but for now, let's address how Goku would do on the written exam. Now, if the Chunin exam's written portion was just graded on how well one answers the actual questions, Goku would probably fail. The questions we know about on the exam contain things like math and advanced writing skills, something that even Goku in Dragon Ball Super struggled to do. Even in the original series, Goku isn't exactly sure how old he is, so this exam is overly complex with a long series of rules. Each applicant begins with a perfect score of 10 points. There are 10 questions worth 1 point apiece. A point is subtracted for every incorrect answer. The grading system is entirely based on a principle of penalization. Number 2, the exam is a team event. What matters is how close each 3 ninja cell can come to retaining an initial 30 points. Number 3, anyone caught attempting to cheat or aiding or abetting a cheater will lose 2 points for each offense. Anyone who has no points left at the test's end, whether due to being caught cheating or an inability to answer any of the questions correctly, will automatically fail. If a single individual fails, the remaining 2 members of that person's cell will be failed as well. Luckily, this exam does not require you to answer a single question correctly in order to pass, essentially making all of the rules irrelevant. Instead, one just needs to not give up after being given the ultimatum by the proctor. Ultimately, the exam is a test of willpower as well as a test of how one can gather information, but the former is all that's required to pass. If anything, I think Goku's performance in the exam would go exactly the same as Naruto's did, not answering a single question at all, or at least correctly, before choosing not to give up and thus passing this exam. I don't see how Goku would be crafty enough or have unique enough abilities or perception at this point to be able to take answers from other people, and I think it's relatively out of character for Goku to cheat. For the sake of this video, we will also assume that Goku either is a special exception who does not have teammates, or he does have some random teammates who don't drag him down in any way. I think it's a cop-out to say Goku loses because his teammates sucked, as even people who stayed completely silent and just didn't leave the room past the exam, I really see no reason for Goku at worst just to pass through basic admission. As this is probably the least important and interesting portion of the exam, let's just move on to the Forest of Death. This portion of the exam is probably the hardest to determine how it would exactly go with Goku participating in it along with the main cast of characters. For those who don't know, the second phase of the Chunin exams is the Forest of Death, in which all remaining teams are placed into a hostile and closed-off forest where they need to survive for 5 days. The other objective of the exams is to get 2 different scrolls that other teams have. This can be done through trickery, stealing, or straight up beating up the other team. The goal of the exam, instead of being information gathering and willpower, is a test of survival abilities and generally the craftiness of the respective genin. Once again, Goku excels at one of these traits while being absolutely terrible at the other. Literally the first thing we see Goku do in Dragon Ball is fending for himself in nature, casually catching giant fish for dinner and fighting off wild dinosaurs. We also see Goku perform well in a very similar situation, that being Roshi's training, in which Goku survived in a dinosaur-filled forest looking for a specific stone that Roshi had written on. However, it's here that Goku's biggest weakness at this point of the series is shown. Krillin easily tricks Goku 2 separate times during this test, both tricking Goku into giving him the stone and then again tricking him by throwing a fake stone for Goku to chase. For an even earlier example, Goku literally lets himself get tied up by someone because they asked nicely. He's a bit gullible. Even from the very beginning of the exams, teams are using high-level impersonation jutsu to manipulate and steal from each other, among other tactics. This is already a substantially higher level of manipulation than what Krillin was doing to Goku. It would honestly be unreasonable wank to say that Goku would just see through this manipulation tactic that some of the Genin were using on him during the Forest of Death. I will say, though, that things like Genjutsu would not work on Goku. Genjutsu, at least at this level, works by manipulating the chakra networks in someone else's body, and simply put, Goku does not have chakra networks. So, Goku making it through this portion is a bit of a toss-up. While being in the Forest of Death itself would literally just be like living at home for Goku, actually getting the scrolls is certainly not guaranteed for him. But let's give Goku the benefit of the doubt so we can actually talk about the really important part of this video, the actual tournament. I want to avoid going over the what-if route and covering every single fight Goku would be in if he was randomly placed in the bracket, and just generally compare him to the top-tier finalists of the exams. Lee, Neji, Naruto, Sasuke, and of course Gaara. We're going to start with Goku before talking about how strong the Genin are. A common misconception about Goku during his fight with Roshi is that he's automatically moon level because Roshi was able to destroy the moon, but this is simply not the case. While both base Goku and Master Roshi are essentially equals, with Roshi having an edge in size, skill, and experience, this is not the Roshi who blew up the moon. In fact, Roshi has two forms that make him more powerful than his base, known as Max and Full Power respectively. Full Power Roshi is the form that destroys Mount Frypan and is stated to be using all of his energy in his body at once, and that doing so was his full power in this state. The form he used to destroy the moon is called Max Power Roshi, and is stated strong enough to destroy the moon by using his muscles to further enhance the Kamehameha. This max power form being a massive amp is pretty consistent, as is implied this attack is stronger than Grade 8 Kid Goku, whose power level would be in the thousands. Now, I'm not saying Roshi is secretly strong enough to fight Raditz or anything, only that he can output a single attack capable of momentarily rivaling power levels in the thousands. This is also pretty consistent with Goku not being called moon level until his own Kamehameha against Piccolo Jr. in the 23rd Budokai. So, where does Goku actually scale by himself? Even with a power level of 10, Goku is casually able to output building levels of power while doing what he just considers basic exercise. Humans considered above average, like Farmer with a shotgun, have a power level of 5. Despite the difference of only 2 times, the difference between a normal human and a power to replicate Goku's boulder crushing feat is a tens of thousands of times difference. In other words, power levels early on in Dragon Ball represent exponential increases in power between values, while later on, power levels become linear in comparison. Times 2 power level is times 2 your actual speed and strength, likely around the start of Z. This somewhat explains why characters like Roshi can go from mountain level to moon level while only having their power level increase by small percentages. Either way, treating power levels as linear, Goku after Roshi's training becomes nearly 14 times stronger, getting a power level of 139. Treating power levels as linear and multiplying off of Goku's earlier feat, Goku would now at bare minimum be city block level in power of his basic physical attacks. Again, this is a bare minimum, but at this point Goku has no feats that we can reasonably justify a higher level of scaling for him. At best, we know that he must be below moon level, as only full power Roshi had the necessary destructive power to do that. Speed is a bit tricky in Dragon Ball, as this early phase has nothing drastic speed-wise that occurs early on. The first major speed feat that Goku has is when he dodges a laser fired by the Full Metal Jacket that Staff Officer Black was using. But at this point, Goku's power level is likely 180, as this is after training on Korin's Tower. Speed in Dragon Ball would work exponentially with power levels as well, so it's very difficult to say with certainty how fast Goku is during the tournament. Scaling the finalists again during the Chunin exams is a little bit difficult given how they get a lot stronger over its course. Sasuke goes from getting slammed by base Lee to being stronger than 5th Gate Lee while in his own base form. The best feat that comes from this era is done by Naruto while in the Forest of Death. While using Kurama's chakra, Naruto is able to smack around and completely stop the attacks of one of Orochimaru's snakes, which would require multi-city block levels of power. This version of Naruto would be comparable or weaker than the cloaked Naruto that was rivaling Neji and fighting transformed Gaara. Everyone who fights transformed Gaara or is able to outpace his sand would be around high hypersonic in speed, as Gaara's sand would automatically block point-blank explosions. These characters might be even faster, as Sasuke can use Chidori, which might be lightning speed, and Neji was able to react to Kidomaru's arrow, which is stated to be as fast as lightning. Both would be massively hypersonic speed feats. So, how does 21st Budokai Goku do in the Chunin exams? Well, it depends on how you want to interpret his power. If you think he's far off from his strength at power level of 180, he probably loses to the likes of Naruto, Neji, Gaara, and Sasuke. But if you think the power level difference of 41, despite not being linear, isn't actually that much, then Goku is probably fast and strong enough to beat everyone in the tournament. So, what do you think? With everything I've laid out, do you think 21st Budokai Goku would be able to win in the Chunin exams? If he loses, how far would he get? Let me know your thoughts and how I'm wrong in the comments down below. And if you ever want to debate me, you can find me on Discord right here. Alright, that's all from me. See ya!